It's a drizzly winter day here in Hopalong Hollow, and it occurred to me, since I have no gardening videos to contribute today, that I have never introduced you to some of my very, very best friends here on the farm. And here we have Ursula, Jemima, and Sophia. Sophia is my oldest sheep. She's the first sheep I ever got, and she's the last one that has survived. She's the larger gray donkey, and we got her when she was a year old. And the reason we got her was that we had a big problem with fox coming in and stealing the hens out of the hen house. But we heard that donkeys were great guardians, and it turns out she is a very, very good guardian. Well, about a year after I had gotten her, I was having a really bad ghastly days where you have to do a bunch of paperwork, a lot of bookkeeping, and I had a miserable headache, and I just decided to take a little break. I walked outside, I pulled a couple plums and peaches off the trees, walked up the hill to give my girls their daily treat, and all the girls came. I had a lot of sheep and goats at that time. All the girls came running down the hill, and then Ursula came up over the hill, and she had a baby donkey with her, Jemima. I had no idea that she was pregnant. She must have been pregnant when we got her, and I tell you, all my cares went out the window when I saw this beautiful little donkey. Now that was, what, are you 6 years old now, sweetheart? From the moment I saw this girl, she's been putting a smile on my face. I love my donkeys. I just love my donkeys. And these girls provide me with lots of great manure for compost and for my gardens. Sophia provides me with wool, which I use in needle felting, although she's gray. Right now she's pretty dirty, but when I shear her, she's got a beautiful, beautiful silver coat. She was originally a black sheep. She's a Lincoln Finn. She's about 12 years old. And they provide me with friendship, animal friendship. They provide me with happiness. I try to give them a really good home. I love my animals very, very much. And they also provide me with great ideas for art, because all my animals are featured in my artwork. Been working on quite a few illustrations of animals here in Hopalong Hollow for a book that's been in the works for a few years. It's actually, believe it or not, a gardening book. And these are just a few illustrations of the donkeys that still need to be painted. Unfortunately, I can't introduce you to all these goats in this illustration because I no longer have them. And I also had all these sheep at one time. Of course, you're familiar with the Peabody boys. They love the camera. But you don't know their names. Jubilee, Zebedee, and Hans. And Mr. Peabody's the daddy. They're three brothers. They were hatched right here in Hopalong Hollow. And unfortunately, their mommy went into the woods, and I haven't seen her since. But we still have the beautiful boys here. And although I really can't tell them apart, except for Daddy, because he has his tail will be about 3 feet longer by the end of the summer than the other boys. What happens with peacocks, in case you didn't know, is they drop their feathers around July and August. They drop their feathers all over the ground, and that's when you get to go and pick all those beautiful feathers up. But then they start growing them back immediately, and then by the time spring arrives, they've got these big, beautiful tails. They're really, really smart birds. But they're also very bossy birds. I mean, they boss all the other birds around on the place. Everyone's afraid of them. The geese used to be in charge of this place, but now it's the peacocks. Peacocks make a wonderful noise. A lot of people hate it. But they only really do that if they're excited about something, if an ambulance goes by, if there's a predator around, or if it's mating season. And other than that, they have many, many different sounds. I guess they're going to be very quiet for me right now. but I know you've heard them on the videos. I have always loved old houses, and when I saw this one, even though it was an absolute decrepit, lost and lonely house, I fell in love with it. We believe it was built anywhere between 1890 and 1912. I have never been able to get an accurate date on this house. I try to date it through the style of the house and the things that are inside of it. The windowsills, the fireplaces, all of them seem to have come out of the Sears catalog from 1890. I found every single sash, every single doorknob, but you know, they could have been sold for many, many years, the same style. But I don't put it at any later than 1912. As a child, we lived in the suburbs. Well, we moved to the suburbs when I was about 9. I grew up in Colorado. And surrounding those suburbs was a countryside. And there was an old house on a hill with a great big barn and farm animals. And every time we'd pass it, I'd say, "Mom, slow down. I want to look at the cows, or I want to look at the horses." And I said, one day I'm going to live in a house like that. Because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a farmer, a forest ranger, a veterinarian, or an artist. Well, I did get my wish as far as being an artist. And in a way I'm a vet because I have so many animals to care for. Not a forest ranger, but we do have an awful lot of woods around us. There's chickens everywhere. These are lavender Americanas and buff Orpingtons. I never planned on getting chickens. When it happened quite by accident. My neighbor went to the flea market and came home with 27 chickens. Well, they didn't like it at his house, and they moved into my place right away. And that's how I got started with chickens. These are not these same chickens. That was many, many years ago. And, but I've had them ever since. All different kinds of chickens. Those little Americana lavenders, well, they were supposed to be a lavender, and that's why I purchased them as baby chicks. But they look a little more silvery gray to me, but we like them anyway, and they all have names. Now, can I tell them apart? No, it's just like the peacocks. They all look exactly the same. The roosters I can tell apart. I think that's Conan right there. And he's a mixed Rhode Island Red with a buff Orpington. We have about a dozen ducks. Most of them are pecans. Those are these white ones with the orange and yellow beaks. And they're all named, but since they all look exactly alike, I really can't tell them apart, except 2 of them do have yellow beaks. That's Zazu and Chloe. Now the little brown one is Trudy. She's been an inspiration in my books, and that gray one is a Swedish duck, and his name is Jangles. This little one coming right up here, this little one was a duckling. She was hatched last year in July. She was only 2 that survived out of that little brood. Unfortunately, little ducklings are very susceptible to all kinds of predators from the sky and from the water. I have always loved animals. I've always found them to be just a great, great, wonderful gift that we have in this world. And I find them completely inspirational for doing artwork. In fact, they're most often the subject of my art, almost entirely. Animals and nature and flowers. But when I was little, my mother wouldn't let us have too many pets because she was allergic to fur. And when I finally did get to have a cat, I was so excited about it, I gave it 6 names. Of 5 geese. This is the beautiful Matilda. She came to live here when her mistress couldn't keep her anymore because she was leaving and could not take her goose with her. So she asked me if Matilda and Alice is her best friend, could come and live here at Hopalong Hollow. And she is a Sebastopol. I have no idea how old she is, but I'm thinking she's getting a little bit old because she's having a little bit of trouble walking these days. Handsome pilgrim goose is Attila. He's not very friendly, but he was one of my first geese as well, and he's fairly old. And he's a real beauty. He's got such a beautiful face. If you ever hear racket around here, it's always this one right here, and that's Hamish. He's a brown Chinese goose, and he is so noisy. All day long. That's Alice. Alice is Matilda's best friend. Only lately she's taken up with Hamish, and she's not paying much mind to Matilda. Every year, those goose girls, lay eggs. Oh my goodness, dozens and dozens of eggs. But they never, ever hatch. They sit on them. It's not as if they don't try. They do try. Unfortunately, nothing ever comes of it. As I said, the animals and the gardens really inspire my work. And that's why I call myself the storybook gardener. Not because I'm a great gardener or anything, but because I'm a storybook person. I would be terribly amiss if I did not introduce you to the original Fiona Goose Feathers. Fiona Goose Feathers, actually this is Fiona Goose Feathers the second. Fiona Goose Feathers the first was the first goose I ever got. It was given to me from a friend who didn't like her because she only had one eye. She was born with one eye. That was the original Fiona Goose Feathers. I fell in love with that goose. She really loved me. I could pick her up and sweep her in my arms and carry her around the yard. And whenever she saw me, she'd come running across the meadow. Didn't like anybody else, and that was a little bit of a problem. She got to the point also where she didn't like cars, and she would actually, when you'd pull across the yard, she would try to chase the tires. So I guess I have to tell you that the original Fiona Goose Feathers came to a most tragic ending, and I cried for 3 days. I tried to replace Fiona Goose Feathers, so I went to the flea market, and there sat a little gosling in a cage. Oh, the poor little thing was sitting in a cage with a chicken. Oh, the water was dirty. The poor little goose was covered in poo. And I asked the man, "Is this a boy or a girl?" He said he thinks it's a boy. And I said, how much? You see, I really wanted a female, so this could be my Fiona Goose Feathers the second. He told me it would be $5. So I took Fiona home with me, rescued Fiona the second, and I don't even know to this day if Fiona Goose Feathers is a boy or a girl. But I will tell you this, Fiona is the most magnificent nanny. She takes on every single duck that comes. As you can see, she's hanging out with the ducks. She doesn't hang out with the geese. She hangs out with the ducks. It's like these are her babies. This is her brood. And Fiona is also a main character in my book, Mamsie Bear and Mopkin. What would a farm be without a great dog or 2 or 3 or 4? We've only got 2. And they are guardian dogs, and they're Great Pyrenees, and they're fantastic. They really are great with children. They are very great with animals. Obviously, that's their purpose. Their purpose is to guard the farm from intruders. That would be predators or people that are not supposed to be here. But they're wonderful, wonderful pets. They're great, great friends. Of course, all dogs are if they're treated properly. So thanks for joining me today here on the farm with all my critters in Hopalong Hollow. See you next time.